This quick video will show you how to import your Excel spreadsheet into Access to make a database. When you open Access, you can go ahead and start a new blank database, and what you want to do is go to the External Data tab and click on the button for importing an Excel spreadsheet. Using the Browse, you just find wherever you have your Excel sheet, and you want to import the data source into a new table. We don't want to append it or link it, we want it to be your new database. Then it should show you something that looks just like your Excel spreadsheet. You can click Next at this point and it'll take you through some options to make selections about your database, but because it's still just one table, one spreadsheet, not our separate tables for the database, we actually don't have it set up quite right yet, so I'm just going to click Finish so that I can make those changes. It's telling me that I have an error. The reason for that is because there's some missing data in temperature. I know that's there, so I'm okay with that. I'm just going to click Close. This is the error that it was showing me, that these particular rows are missing temperature. I know that I'm going to go ahead and delete this table because I don't need it, but I'll show you that if you try to delete a table that's open, it can't do that. So what you first need to do, I'm just right-clicking on the top of the tab, closing it, and then I can right-click and delete that table. So here's your Excel spreadsheet. It's all as one table, but what we want to do is break it apart into the separate tables that make it a functional database, and those would be the tables that we described in the associated assignment. So we already have one blank table open, and we're going to make this one our site table. The site table has the site ID and the site name. Those site IDs were these three. I'm going to write out their whole name. And then I want to give the appropriate names to both the tab as well as the fields. One way you can do that is by right-clicking on the field name and going to Rename. This is Site ID. Another way that you can do that, and I'll show you here, is if you right-click on the top of the tab, go to the Design view instead of the Data Sheet view. It'll say you have to name it first. We want to name it Site. And then it'll show you information about the contents of those cells. So this is another place where you can change the name of the field. One other thing that we can do in this view is set the primary key. So you might have noticed if we go back to the data sheet view, yes, we want to save it, it automatically gives an ID number to it. We actually don't need that, and we want to delete this row so that it's just our site name and site ID. It actually won't let you delete that because it automatically sets it as the primary key, and you can't delete the primary key. So what you first want to do is go to the Design view. Site ID should be the primary key. You can right-click and get to primary key, or you can just click that button up there. Now that we have the site ID as the primary key, we can actually get rid of that ID row. So this is our site table. We now want to set up our position table, so we will create a table that's going to have our different positions, which are simply A, B, C, D, and E. And then the descriptions for those tables, or for those positions, which are the fact that they are off track, in track, in track, in track, and off track. We want to do the same thing. We want to name these, name the table, and get rid of this ID, but it's automatically the primary key. So we're going to go to Design View. That'll ask us to name the table. It is named Position. We can change the name of the fields to Position ID, and Position Description. We want Position ID to be the primary key, and then we can get rid of this unnecessary ID row and then save it, and there's our position table. So the soil data table that was the original import very easily becomes the positions at sites table. We can make it a little simpler and name it just simply sample, but we can't rename it with it open, so I'm going to do that over here and rename it sample because it's information about the individual samples. Open that. We don't need this redundant line here, so we can delete it. We also want to get rid of, again, the ID, but it's set as the primary key. So we're going to go into the design view. We're going to set sample ID as the primary key, and then we're going to get rid of the ID row. Going back to the data sheet view, we now have the 3 tables set up for our database. And the last thing we need to do is to define the primary and foreign key relationships among the tables, but it actually won't let you do this with the tables open, so I'm just right-clicking each and closing them. And then we go to Database Tools and click the Relationships button. It gives you a pop-up asking you which tables you're going to define relationships for, and we're going to do all 3, so we add them and close. To establish the relationships, you just click on the primary key in one of your tables and drag it to the corresponding field where it will be a foreign key. A pop-up box arrives. We click Enforce Referential Integrity. That means that the database will not allow a foreign key value to be added to the values in the data if it does not appear as a primary key value in the database. So we click Create. We do the same thing for the site table by dragging site ID to site ID field in the sample, and again click Reinforce Referential Integrity and Create, and there we go.